Hello and welcome back on Primetime Watchmaking in the News, and let me tell you that we are going for a pretty juicy edition. Be prepared. Business news, plenty of new pieces to cover, a bit of EPHJ summer with some interesting innovations seen there, a bit of Only Watch. Well, this summer edition will be quite dense, and again, well, you can download it as a podcast, link below. And yes, I have new glasses, special ones, again made for me by our good friend Arthur Alexanian, and simply love them with this little reminder of a rather famous timepiece. But enough of that, and since our last prime time, well, we published a very important video where I explain in detail what we've been working on for quite a while, what is HOROPEDIA, and why this project is so dear to me, and I can already thank all those that have shared some really kind messages with us regarding this massive endeavor. Our goal is quite bold, and we simply want to develop the watchmaking encyclopedia of reference focused on crafts and know-how using video. But we also published a report about the new Maurice Lacroix Pontos S Diver watch, an honestly priced summer piece. We took you along the 75th anniversary of one of the greatest watchmakers of our generation, Mr. Philippe Dufour, who, by the way, is the president of the HOROPEDIA Foundation. In June, we also covered the EPHJ, the professional trade show for the watchmaking, jewelry, medical, and microtechnological industry that was held in Geneva. And I think you guys know that we like this fair. Always a bit geeky, but always super interesting to see what's coming. The 21st edition of the Salon hosted 750 companies, which is 7% more than in 2022, and attendance was also 21% higher than in the previous year, with almost 22,000 Swiss and international trade visitors. 75% of participants came from Switzerland, while the rest from 16 other countries, including France, Germany, Italy, USA, and Japan. So with a dozen roundtables, experts discussed the state of the horological market, its challenges and perspective, as well as innovation in micromechanics and robotics, cybersecurity, and sustainability too. Among the debates, I moderated one of them, talking about the challenges in the transmission of watchmaking knowledge, and I guess you see the link with HOROPEDIA. And the participant included Philippe Dufour, yes, him again, Dr. Helmut Krott, and talking about him, well, just wanted to let you know that his fabulous book regarding watch dials has finally been translated into English. The original French version has been sold out for years, and this is clearly a reference book. Also present was Frédéric Minot, a teacher at the Geneva Watchmaking School, Marine Desprel, director of the Watch Library Foundation, and the great Rossella Baldi, a watch historian whose work regarding 18th century watchmaking could be compared to some proper police investigation methods. But let's quickly listen to Mr. Dufour, who summarizes the stakes basically.
Le risque il est qu'à certains moments on fasse des produits qui n'ont plus d'âme. C'est-à-dire des produits qui sortent directement des machines. Ce qui fait l'intérêt de l'horlogerie actuelle, ce qu'on appelle haut de gamme, c'est la touche humaine. Le jour où on n'est plus capable de mettre ça, on aura des problèmes. Ouais. Voilà.
Est-ce que les gens sont suffisamment conscients, je dis dans les entreprises, de cette problématique à ton avis?
Je pense que c'est en train de venir. Ouais. Parce que je vois un peu l'évolution des petits sous-traitants qu'il y a dans ma région, la Vallée des Jours. C'est plein de nouveaux ateliers qui font de l'anglage, des trucs qui avaient disparu. Ouais. Donc les grands se rendent compte que dans leurs produits, il faut mettre une touche humaine. Ouais. Et ça, c'est réjouissant.
Still at the EPHJ, another eye-opening panel was on the shortage of workforce in our industry, and it looks like it's an international problem. There are now more open positions than application in Switzerland, especially in the field of mechanics, finishing, but also programming and micromechanics. I mean, the same picture can be seen in the UK, Germany, and other countries. And we asked your opinion on this in one of our Instagram posts, and to no surprise, well, you all noticed that the main reason is the lack of confidence in the future of the profession of a watchmaker. And to illustrate this shortage, a recruiting company called JobWatch currently has more than 800 open positions here in Switzerland. Listen to his founder.
Non, alors il n'y a clairement pas assez de monde actuellement, d'où justement ce dont on vient de parler dans dans la table ronde ici. Il y a des initiatives qui sont prises, il y a des entreprises qui commencent à former par elles-mêmes, il y a des entreprises qui se mettent ensemble pour former aussi. Il y a les politiques également qui prennent part à cette question-là en augmentant en fait, l'attrait de ces métiers dans les écoles. Et ça, justement, je pense que ce point-là doit vraiment être mis en valeur actuellement. Les jeunes, je pense qu'ils ont une mauvaise idée des métiers de la mécanique et ce qui crée cette pénurie et ce qui ne va pas changer s'il n'y a pas un changement d'image.
You see, there are some positives for those who wish to embrace a career in the industry, and in Geneva alone, watchmaking and related industrial companies account for a very large part of our economy. It's not only about banks and services.
Il se trouve que Genève, communément, est connue plutôt pour ses organisations internationales, ses banques et ses organismes de trading, mais rarement pour son industrie. Or, cette industrie, elle est vraiment importante. Nous sommes, je crois, le 3e canton exportateur dans ce domaine en Suisse. J'imagine qu'on n'ira pas vers de l'industrie lourde telle qu'on peut l'imaginer. Hein. C'est pas la vocation de Genève. C'est vraiment cette vocation de sous-traitance avec des savoir-faire pointus, de la micromécanique, des choses très particulières. On a besoin de former parce qu'on vient de parler de manufacture, on vient de parler d'horlogerie. Il y a vraiment un manque de relève. Donc ça, c'est un vrai sujet.
So before moving on with this prime time and to close this section, I also wanted to put forward a couple of things seen at this EPHJ worth to be mentioned. One involving technology, which I think has a huge potential, and the other one also very interesting with a new regulating organ architecture thanks to ball bearing. Let's go.
Alors oui, on est capable de déposer n'importe quel matériau sur n'importe quel substrat avec des résolutions inégalées. Donc nous, nos marchés principaux, c'est surtout la microélectronique, le semi-conducteur. Mais on a pas mal de demandes dans l'horlogerie, donc c'est la première fois qu'on vient à ce salon en Suisse. Notre technologie a été inventée, je l'ai dit, dans des laboratoires de physique et est dérivée en fait des technologies de microscopie à force atomique qui permettent d'analyser la topographie d'un substrat. Et nous, on a dérivé ces technologies-là pour faire du dépôt par capillarité avec des pipettes qu'on remplit de liquide et qui déposent uniquement avec une force capillaire qui ne cause aucun dégât sur le substrat. Et ça, c'est un atout immense dans cette industrie, dans la mesure où on ne fait pas de dégâts sur le reste du cadran, sur le reste de l'aiguille, on n'a pas de matériaux abrasifs, on ne fait pas de choses soustractives, et donc ça a une utilité première dans ce domaine.
Je présente un échappement dont le brevet est déposé et a été publié le 27 janvier, qui a cette particularité de lier coaxialement l'organe régulateur à l'organe distributeur. Un des axes de l'innovation, c'est vraiment la recherche de compacité. Si on fait des systèmes plus compacts, on va avoir des systèmes plus légers, donc on a besoin de moins d'énergie à mettre en œuvre pour faire déplacer ces pièces. Le monoaxe, il faut imaginer un petit peu comme une recette de cuisine. J'ai pris tous des éléments existants et je les ai revisités. J'ai remis une autre géométrie. Donc on garde au niveau dynamique le même fonctionnement que l'échappement encre suisse, simplement c'est vraiment la compacité qui fait son effet. Maintenant, ce qui reste à prouver, ce qu'on a vu, ce qui n'était pas recherché, c'est qu'on a un petit gain de rendement de 3%, sûrement du fait que notre encre est équilibrée et le fait d'utiliser des roulements à billes. On sait que les rendements des roulements à billes sont meilleurs que les pivotements entre un axe et un rubis, du fait qu'il n'y ait pas d'huile. Vraiment du roulement.
Yes, this technique of depositing material at the super micro level is really interesting and offers many creative options for watchmakers and designers. Okay, now enough EPHJ, but I clearly invite all those that want to discover more about the backstage of this industry to visit next year. Really worth it. So let's now switch to some other business news, and we are hearing more and more rumors regarding some changes at the helm of a few brands. Business is still doing strong, but there are for sure a few dark clouds here and there, and often this results in some personal changes. We, for instance, just heard that the CEO of Roger Dubuis, Nicolas Andreatta, with whom we spoke during Watches and Wonders in March, the kind of Antonio Banderas of the industry, well, he has decided to pursue his career outside of the group, and you may interpret this as you wish. But after more than 4 years as captain of the brand, which kind of changed its original plan of only producing Geneva hallmark timepieces, as well as chasing RichardMille in some sense, well, it was confirmed that Emmanuel Perrin will take over as interim CEO. And as I said, there are other rumors, and we'll follow up on this game of musical chairs when and if necessary. Okay, more business news, and on an international scale, the Mercury Project has published an interesting paper on the slowdown of retail sales in jewelry and watches in the US market. Well, I've been telling this since last year, that the extreme after COVID figures are kind of not so normal, which eventually will face correction. It was obvious that the unprecedented pace, especially in watches, from the last 2 years could not be sustained. And as a result, in the US, the downturn of retail sales of watches was down 3.6% in the first quarter of 2023. The decline is slightly more marked for jewelry, with minus 5.5% in the same period. The numbers are still higher than before the pandemic. However, the end of the year might not be as record-breaking as might be expected. According to the Mercury Project, the final results were driven by a weaker performance in the wholesale channel, a decline, interestingly enough, in the number of marriages, and strong smartwatch competition, while big groups have just secured their positions in the USA. Assisted by a wealthier customer base, companies such as Richemont and Watches of Switzerland showed a strong resilience. Both reported double-digit quarterly growth at plus 14% and 27% respectively. With Richemont, of course, gaining momentum thanks mainly to Cartier. On the other side of the globe, on the contrary, it's fast recovering from the pandemic restrictions and opening to the rest of the world. And big events are coming to Asia, including the 3rd edition of Watches and Wonder in China. And the salon will take place in Shanghai from September the 13th to the 17th of 2023. And for the first time, it will be open to the public over the weekend. So the scale of the expo is smaller than in Geneva, with only 14 exhibiting brands, but considering the number of watch aficionados and collectors in this part of the world, I am pretty sure that during the public days it will be packed. Tickets will be available from August via the official Watches and Wonders WeChat mini program, priced at approximately $21, which is of course much less than the Geneva version. And speaking of the Geneva edition, well, it looks like in 2024, Watches and Wonder will be a bit different from this year. I hope in a good way, and especially in terms of size. So we started to hear people talking about the high probability of the long-awaited comeback by some big players, maybe even the Schwarz group, which would be nice, considering their stance on the fact of never ever attending such big shows after their Basel World deception. Well, let's wait for the official announcements, and until then I can only welcome this step, as it once again brings Geneva forward in the industry, making it the watch capital of Europe. Okay, let's go for it. The world, maybe. Yes, a little bit of assumed chauvinism, which leads me to talk about another event to be held in Geneva at the end of August with its Geneva Watch Days. This show has for sure gained a lot of momentum, despite that it will only be the 3rd edition of this really cool and casual event, marking nicely the end of the summer. It was founded by 8 watch brands, Breitling, Bulgari, the two being the big drivers of the event, but also by De Bethune, Girard-Perregaux, H. Moser & Company, MB&F, Ulysse Nardin, and Urbeck. And its philosophy was and still is to emphasize cooperation while avoiding complexity, and one of the main reasons why this event is so appreciated by those attending. So the official inauguration in partnership with the Canton and City of Geneva will kick off for the festivities on August the 29th, with nearly 40 watch brands showcasing their latest releases at the main pavilion seated by the lake, as well as at boutiques and venues throughout the cities, hotels and so forth. So the public days are from August the 30th with free guided tours, and on Saturday, September the 2nd, admission will be free, plus educational activities and celebration. And by the way, HOROPEDIA will also be there, so don't hesitate to come to our stand in the main tent and learn more about the project, and will also be present with us young watchmakers from the Geneva Watchmaking School, demonstrating on site some watchmaking craft. Okay, let's continue with a rather controversial story, and let's not be afraid of the words. A major shitstorm just happened, which could have a major impact on the whole secondary watch market, and I'm talking obviously about the Omega affair. So for those who haven't heard about it, well, here's the story in a nutshell. In 2021, an early Omega Speedmaster of 1957 was sold at Philip's auction for the record price of over $3 million US. I was in that auction room when it happened, and I can promise you that it already felt a little bit strange, and this is what I had to say about it at the time. Okay, something extra worth mentioning concerns Lot 53, an original Omega Speedmaster of 1957, estimated between 80 and 120k, which was ultimately sold for 3.1 million, meaning approximately 30 times the estimates. So it's quite rare to see such a huge gap between estimates and final results. I mean, the team of Philips are maybe sometimes a bit conservative with their estimates, but again, such a difference is simply massive. And what was even more surprising was that even before the auction was finished, well, I received an official Omega email, an Omega press release telling me about this performance. So, though we could see that 3 bidders were busy on the phones, I must say that this result has a little odd side to it, and could it be a way of hyping the brand's reputation into the club of super expensive vintage pieces? Well, who knows? Well, now we have the answers, and it's not really pretty, thanks to the investigation work of José Perez from Periscope and Swiss newspaper NZZ, and I can only salute my true journalist colleagues for putting their hands that deep into the matter. So the watch in question, the Speedmaster reference 2915-1 Broad Arrow with tropical dial, was a Frankenstein assembled from several parts of different ages, including the mechanism. And the crazy part is that the watch had been assessed by Omega themselves as being genuine, and the experts of Philippe went along with this, and one can understand that you could indeed trust them in it, you know. But after this investigation, it seems that some Omega employees were part of the scam, including the former head of the Omega Museum and Brand Heritage, in providing the necessary information to pull this off. And the best part is that naturally the watch was actually bought by Omega for their own collection, considering the then hypothetical significance of the piece. So yes, not a pretty story, and both Omega and Philips said that they were joint victims of organized criminal efforts by a group of conspirators, and criminal charges have been addressed to those involved. And well, this is now in the hands of the law. But I can't even imagine what went behind closed door at the Schwarz Group headquarters. Must have been quite violent, and understandably so. But in my opinion, this story has a much bigger impact than meets the eye. I mean, first and foremost, it is the credibility of the industry, especially in the secondary watch market, which is based on trust. Undermining this basic principle can jeopardize the scale of all rare timepieces, including the so-called grails. Undoubtedly, people can start asking legitimate questions about all watches with a big history, and putting doubt in people's mind is never a good thing for the market. Collectors will be more cautious about spending their money when purchasing collectibles without bulletproof evidence of their authenticity, and it's not always that easy to be 100% sure. Anyways, it would be nice to hear your opinion on this subject in the comments below, and if your trust has been compromised with this story. Okay, let's continue on a more cheerful note. Richard Mille has launched its own RichardMille Sailing Cup. The elegant offshore race stretches across the English Channel, or La Manche as we call it in French, and it is a competition between all of the vessels built or designed before 1940. The défilé of 15 historical yachts went from Falmouth to the Havre, and the winner received quite a unique trophy made by the Maison Garard, a crown jeweler to the British royal family. So the inaugural RichardMille Cup 2023 is the first in a series of annual events, and has been organized with the help of the Royal Yacht Squadron, the Royal Cornwall Yacht Club, the Royal Dart Yacht Club, and the Société des Régates of the Havre. And I just had to talk about it because, I mean, yeah, I like sailing. Okay, so let's now talk about watches, and the big recent announcements concerns Only Watch 2023 with 62 lots put on auction later this fall. This is a subject in itself, and we will come back on it on a dedicated report. But let's already say that the brands went all in on this one with pretty funky pieces, to say the least. And this event has for sure become a real communication platform for the brands to express their creativity, and in a certain way almost undermines the actual mission of this charitable endeavor created by Luc Petavino in 2005 with the noble goal to raise funds for research on the Duchenne muscular dystrophy disease. Well, that's just my opinion. So let's continue with other watches, and let's quickly come back on one of the most successful Kickstarter launch of recent history with Argon Watches, a brand we covered this spring. So there are two guys behind this. One is an extremely talented young watchmaker, Théo, who you've seen at our watchmakers dinner. And the other one is an equally gifted businessman, Guillaume Lédet, who also leads Nivala Gransion and Vulcan. So both decided to create something new and went on Kickstarter with a request of $100,000 to complete the project. And little did they know how humble this request was, as in just several days they accumulated more than 1 million in pledges. I'd say this is well deserved for the sleek design of the Argon Space One, inspired by the space exploration and design era of the 60s. It comes in steel, carbon and titanium, and the watch features a Swiss Soprod automatic movement P024, a sapphire cockpit and a stainless steel see-through caseback. And Theo developed the jumping hour function. Well, of course, visually it's a bit of a cross between some well-known brands, but the level of coolness of this watch in its price range is quite unbeatable. And the last big Kickstarter success I can refer to was Furlan Mari, and see what they've become. Alright, next watch with the new HM8 Mark II by MB&F, a seriously revamped version of the HM8, which just showed another dimension of sports watch design. The presented timepiece has its distinctive time display with magnified markings, which looks like a speedometer. As with the previous model, it has a colorful dial side winding rotor, and the aerodynamic case is made of carbon Macrolon grade 5 titanium and hyper-complex double-curved sapphire crystals. So the size of the machine is 47 by 41.5 millimeter, which in pure numbers doesn't sound very ergonomic, but thanks to the design, it looks small on the wrist and is really cool. Inside there is a horological engine composed of a jumping hour and trailing minute module developed in-house by MB&F, powered by a Giro-Perregaux base movement. The watch comes in two versions, white and racing green, both limited to 33 pieces. Next, and French watchmaker Bell & Ross at the beginning of June has presented a nice homage to the famous aerial acrobatic team Patrouille de France. The latter one has been a long-standing partner of the brand and marked its 70th birthday at the end of May. Carlos Forcillo, the CEO of Bell & Ross, told us about the novelty already in March, and we had a chance to see it in real life. The Patrouille de France edition is a brand standard 42mm model with BR caliber 302 automatic mechanical movement, and the vivid blue color of the dial is a reference to the color of the Alpha Jet of the Patrouille de France. And on the ceramic caseback, well, you'll find the silhouette of the 5 aircraft that have flown since the creation of the Patrouille de France in 1953. An interesting collectible for true aviation fans. French fans, let's say. Another watch is a bit more sophisticated in the design, and it's the Schwarz Etienne geometry. So the timepiece is definitely original with an intricate guilloche dial divided into quadrants. You can find an array of finishes on it, including fluted lines, azuré, clou de Paris, and fine sandblasted sections. And this geometrical pattern was created by the acclaimed designer Éric Giraud, and behind this fantastic dial is hidden the in-house automatic movement with the caliber ASE 200.02 beating at a frequency of 3 Hz. Its micro rotor builds up a power reserve of up to 86 hours, and the watch comes in 2 colors, silver and salmon, each limited to 100 pieces, quite stunning I would say, and different in particular. So let's stay with interesting design and go to the Netherlands, because we're going to talk about the Deconstructed timepiece from Holthinrichs Watches. The brand was created by Michiel Holthinrichs, who had a passion for architecture and technical design, and the perfect combo became useful in watchmaking, and in 2016 Michiel established his own atelier. The new timepiece that came out recently is called Deconstructed, and the 38.5mm case and the bracelet are 3D printed from titanium grade 5. The dome sapphire crystal covers the original dial, which is composed of 25 separate parts in 3 sequential layers that are deliberately arranged to naturally guide the eye from the case to the core of the watch. So the skeletonized base plate with applied segments reflect the main idea to make each layer visible, including the in-house HWM01 movement. Seriously, a very cool watch, and interesting how they use this high-tech side here to manufacture it. Okay, let's now go back to Switzerland with tagheuer, which this year celebrated the 60th anniversary of its iconic Carrera model. And now they came with a new connected watch, and I know it's not really our style to talk about these kind of watches, but here the interesting strategy is to go upscale with such watches, and I'm not sure if it's a working strategy. While I know that there's a certain desire to be the success of the Apple Watch, and good luck with this one, but it has never been a true concurrence, and as many of us, I mean, we still prefer well-done mechanical timepieces. Yet the demand is there, and brands have to fulfill this demand. So TAG announced the launch of two of such timepieces, which the brand called luxurious, elegant, and powerful. So the tagheuer connected 45mm bright black edition and the first ever tagheuer connected 42mm golden bright edition, and both timepieces have a ceramic bezel adorned with golden lacquer and PVD and comes with an exclusive color-changing watch face called Tonos. It looks like a real watch from a distance, but with golden details, titanium case, and other features, I think it's better to invest in a real watch. I mean, what's your thoughts about this? And to finish this summer edition of Primetime, one more story regarding jaegerlecoultre. Following the successful release in February, the Maison presented the second capsule collection of rare timepieces under its program, the Collectibles. So it was created for watch enthusiasts who wish to acquire a piece of JLC history, and the Collectibles was introduced to celebrate the 190 years of the manufacture. So the program covers the golden ages of the 20th century watchmaking, with timepieces produced from the 1920s to the 70s. And a meticulously curated selection of historically timepieces is released as a series of capsule collections presented in different cities around the world, and available for purchase, of course. So the second edition, comprising 11 watches, includes a 1920s duoplan, an early reverso, and two great innovations from the beginning of the 50s, the world's first fully automatic watch, Futurmatic and Memovox, with alarm function and automatic winding. So every Collectibles timepieces is presented with an extract from the jaegerlecoultre archive, could be useful today, and a complimentary copy of the collectible book featuring the 17 most important timepieces. So yes, this is it for this edition. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for all your feedback, and we wish you a super summer, but we'll have a few reports coming in the meantime, don't worry. So the very best to you, see you real soon, and viva watchmaking!
Bonjour Monsieur Dufour. On se connaît, je crois, non?
Oui, on s'est déjà rencontrés.
On s'est déjà rencontrés une ou deux fois, je vois. Ouais, ça, voilà.